Welcome to Episode 3, Death and Resurrection of our Empress Matilda Saga. Last time, in Episode 2, A Queen's Ploy, the Lioness roared. In 1139, Empress Matilda landed in England with fire in her veins and vengeance in her heart. Though King Stephen dismissed her as a powerless, pompous dupe, she proved him wrong, seizing castles, rallying rebels, and outmaneuvering his armies at every turn. Then came Lincoln in 1141, a battle that should have ended the war. But Stephen, reckless, proud, and impatient, charged straight into Matilda's trap. His own barons abandoned him, his hopes shattered, his crown slipped away as he was dragged in chains to Matilda's prison. Victory was hers, but arrogance is a poison. In London, Empress Matilda's triumph turned to ash. She demanded loyalty, but offered nothing. She planned her coronation until the city rose in reaction to her arrogance. Queen Matilda of Boulogne, King Stephen's cunning wife, identified the Empress's weakness and bought the people's support with gold, while the Lioness minted her coins. Her self-described epithet, Lady of the English, proved mere vanity. Betrayed, hunted, forced to flee, Matilda watched her dreams of the crown fade in the streets of London. Now, the war takes a darker turn. In Episode 3, Death and Resurrection, Winchester Burns, allies betray, and Matilda, cornered and outmatched, faces her greatest defeat yet. But with the Empress imprisoned, when all seems lost, death itself becomes her secret weapon. Subscribe now to follow the legend. Like, share, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. This is Storyteller's Hearth Fireside Tales, where history's greatest battles are fought anew. Stephen's brother, Henry of Blois, the powerful Bishop of Winchester, had once backed Empress Matilda, but now, in a dramatic reversal, he switched allegiance once again, this time to support Queen Matilda, Stephen's wife. Determined to reclaim Winchester, Bishop Henry marched on the city and laid siege to the royal castle, then held by the Empress's Angevin loyalists. In 1141, Winchester was a city divided. The royal castle stood guard on the southwest, while Henry's own episcopal stronghold, Devizes Castle, dominated the southeast. When Empress Matilda learned of Henry's betrayal, she acted swiftly. Rallying her forces, including her half-brother Robert of Gloucester, she struck back, arriving at Winchester on July 31st, 1141, in a surprise assault. Bishop Henry barely escaped, fleeing as his troops retreated into the formidable Devizes Castle. The Angevins instantly besieged Devizes, with Matilda establishing her headquarters in the royal castle, and Robert positioning his forces near Winchester Cathedral. But the bishop's men fought back ruthlessly. On the 2nd of August, they set fire to the city, reducing much of it to ashes. Devizes, a modern stone fortress built in 1138, proved to be a stubborn stronghold. Nestled in the city walls, its defenders were still able to receive outside aid, despite the Angevins pressing the siege as best they could. Meanwhile, Stephen's Queen Matilda was gathering a formidable relief army. Her forces included mercenaries funded by Bishop Henry, levies from her lands in Boulogne, the nearly 1,000-strong London militia, and William of Ypres's elite Flemish cavalry. They encircled Winchester from the east, trapping the Angevins inside. As the blockade tightened, Empress Matilda's troops began to starve. In a desperate bid to break the siege, Robert of Gloucester fortified Warewell Abbey, 6 miles north of the city, but William of Ypres crushed the Angevin detachment, inflicting heavy losses. The noose was tightening. The fate of the Civil War now hung on who could hold out the longest in the smoldering ruins of Winchester. With supplies dwindling and Winchester's encirclement tightening, Robert of Gloucester new retreat was inevitable. He organized a strategic military withdrawal, hoping to save his army and protect Empress Matilda. The plan was clear. Earl Reginald of Cornwall and Brian Fitzcount would lead the vanguard, elite troops tasked with escorting the Empress to safety. The main column would guard the baggage train, while Robert himself commanded the rearguard, shielding the retreat. On September 14th, 1141, the Angevins abandoned Winchester, marching west toward Salisbury. Their escape route crossed the River Test at Stockbridge, 8 miles ahead, and a crucial choke point. But Queen Matilda's forces were quick to notice the movement and reacted immediately. Circumventing Robert's rearguard, they slammed straight into the Angevin main body, shattering it. The vanguard, racing ahead, were able to successfully deliver Empress Matilda to Gloucester. But, sadly, the rest of the army was decimated. Only scattered remnants escaped the slaughter. Robert's rearguard caught up and fought fiercely, but by the time they reached the Test, collapse was inevitable. The bridge was clogged with fleeing soldiers, and William of Surrey's troops closed in from behind. Trapped and outnumbered, Robert of Gloucester, Matilda's greatest commander, surrendered with his surviving men. The Rout of Winchester was a catastrophic failure for Matilda's cause. With Robert captured, her military strength had crumbled. Although the balance of power had shifted, the war was far from over. To secure Robert's release, Matilda was forced to free Stephen in a straight prisoner swap. Negotiations for the prisoner exchange reached an impasse when Queen Matilda proposed trading Robert of Gloucester for King Stephen. Empress Matilda, unwilling to relinquish her royal captive, countered with a generous counteroffer: Robert's freedom in exchange for 12 earls and a substantial ransom in gold. Faced with this refusal, the resourceful queen turned to Robert's wife, Amabel, who was holding Stephen in their castle. In a secret arrangement made without the Empress's knowledge, the two noblewomen, with the backing of the Church, orchestrated the simultaneous release of their husbands, effectively bypassing the stalled official negotiations. In a dramatic reversal, Henry of Blois convened a new church council, which formally renounced its earlier stance and reaffirmed Stephen's rightful kingship. To cement this renewed legitimacy, Stephen and Queen Matilda underwent a second coronation during Christmas of 1141, a potent symbolic gesture designed to bolster their authority amid the chaos of civil war. Devizes Castle was a newly renovated stone fortress built to replace an older wooden one that had been destroyed by fire. Matilda is dragged through the gates, past jeering soldiers. In the torchlight, her face is gaunt, but her spine stays straight. While historians are not clear how she came to be a prisoner at Devizes, in one version it was the result of a betrayal that was common at the time. Matilda was led to her room, which was to be her prison, atop a tower in the castle. Most chroniclers agree she was not mistreated in Devizes, but kept under close guard, as was befitting a woman of her station. Under the rules of chivalry, she would have been allowed some small luxuries such as makeup, herbs to make perfume, medicine, or preserving food, and other niceties. Matilda said to the guard, "Tell Stephen this: a cage cannot hold a lioness for long." At that, Matilda heard the heavy lock snap shut. After the sound of the guard's footsteps descending the spiral stone staircase faded into silence, Matilda heard a faint whisper from the next room. "You're not alone here, lass," it said, in a thick Scottish accent. Empress Matilda is no stranger to death and danger. She had seen corpses scattered across battlefields, watched her brothers' and half-sisters' bodies being brought ashore after the sinking of the White Ship, and stood over her father's tomb as the barons defaulted on their solemn oaths. Death was an old companion. Now she would wear its face. The voice in the dark belonged to Alan of Galloway, a Scottish knight captured in a skirmish, most likely at the Battle of Lincoln. His cell shared a wall with hers. Through whispers, they plotted. "They'll never expect it," Alan murmured. "Besides, the guards are easily bought, and don't check the dead too closely." Matilda's lips thinned. "Then we will give them a corpse to carry out." A fever struck the castle at that time, and, conveniently, a kitchen maid died, her body wrapped in sackcloth for burial beyond the walls. Alan bribed the guards with possibly the promise of Angevin gold. The deal was simple. Look away when the corpse leaves. One early historian noted Stephen's camp was riddled with traitors and defectors that were eager to help the Empress. Some accounts suggest Matilda feigned illness, and the doctor might have given her opium-laced remedies, which she later repurposed. Dawn bled grey over Devizes in Wiltshire as the castle groaned awake. Matilda lay still on the cold floor, her face possibly smeared with a pallor-inducer such as white lead, chalk, or ash, and lips blued with crushed herbs. She appeared not to be breathing. Matilda would have been able to procure these extraordinary items because of benefits given to lady prisoners of high status. 2 guards lifted her and carried her down the spiral stairs. The sackcloth shifted. A sliver of winter air kissed her skin. It is not known how Alan of Galloway escaped with Matilda's body. Some suggestions are he feigned sickness from the plague, and they would have wanted him out of the castle as fast as possible. Beyond the walls, the corpse was dumped into a waiting cart. The driver, a macabre-looking hooded figure, whipped the horses into motion. Only when the castle vanished behind the hills did Matilda sit up, gasping, the sackcloth falling away. Alan grinned. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Your Grace." She touched her face, wiping away the death mask. "No," she said. "Welcome back to war." Ahead, horses waited, and a rebellion to be fought. By the time Stephen's men scoured the roads, Matilda had already rejoined her forces. The legend spread like wildfire. The Empress had cheated death. The dead walk for her cause. Meanwhile in London, Stephen fumed. "Find her," he snarled in his characteristic rage, "before the whole kingdom believes she's an invincible spirit." But Matilda was no ghost. She was vengeance that made her way back to Oxford. Stephen, surveying Oxford Castle's formidable defences, knew a direct assault would be foolhardy. The fortress boasted towering stone walls, a deep moat fed by the Thames, and a well-provisioned garrison, advantages that convinced him to settle in for a prolonged siege. The brutal winter of 1142–43 became his unwitting ally. By December, the Thames had frozen into a solid sheet of ice, while relentless snowstorms buried the roads in impassable drifts. These conditions created a double-edged sword. While they trapped Matilda inside the castle, they also made life miserable for Stephen's besieging army. His troops, camped in the open, suffered terribly from frostbite and dwindling supplies. The frozen river, normally a defensive asset for the castle, ironically became a vulnerability, a fact Matilda would exploit in her daring escape. Inside the castle, Matilda paced like a caged wolf. "This is the 3rd month of the siege, and we cannot hang on for much longer. We will start running out of food and supplies if this goes on for another week," the castle governor, Robert Doyley, warned. She stared into the blizzard, a smile forming in her lips. "Then I will leave tonight. The Lioness has cheated death, but the war is far from over. Empress Matilda's daring escape from Devizes Castle has become legend, repeated in taverns and sung in ballads across England. Yet even as she slips through Stephen's grasp, a greater trial awaits." In Episode 4, the legend begins. The frozen Thames becomes her road to vengeance. Trapped in the besieged ruins of Oxford Castle, Matilda faces her most desperate hour yet. With blizzards howling and Stephen's army closing in, she must gamble everything on a midnight flight across ice and snow, or perish in the storm. But the Lioness does not surrender, and when her son, Henry, lands on English soil with a sword in his hand, the war takes a turn no one foresaw. A new conqueror rises. Subscribe now to witness the making of a legend. Like, share, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. This has been a Storyteller's Hearth Fireside Tales production, where history's greatest escapes come to life.